Hello, warrior women. Kara McCoy here, body transformation expert for women over 40. Today, we're going to look at the spiral of healthy aging. So, what does that mean? When it comes to aging, we either look at it as one or two ways. We look at it like we don't like it, it's inevitable, we're going to be in a worse off place, our health is going to decline, and we're going to slowly contract into nothingness. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way is to look at it as a time of expansion and growth. So a lot of it depends on how you're wired in your brain, your patterns and your conditioning from a long, long time ago. But here's the good news. Those things can change. And when it does change, this is the mindset work. This is the psychology piece, the cognitive restructuring that I do as a coach is to be able to see what meaning you're putting on things and enhance it or change the belief system to expand your self-identity. So you're living from that higher plateau, that 30,000 foot view, as we call it, and you live a deeper, more rich and more rewarding life. And it builds health. The reason for that is because when we're living well in our hearts and minds, our body takes suit. You guys know we're not disconnected. It's all one. So the body knows your secrets and your sorrows. So when we redefine our challenges, when we redefine age, death, birth, all of that, we can redefine how we move through the aging years. So the spiral that most people look as is where we start out here. We're born, and then we're going through life, and the spiral is getting smaller. We've got hits along the way. Okay. So we might have had a hit of, money problems. Okay. And we contract a little bit. We might have had a divorce in there, right? We contract again. We become more cautious, perhaps more hardened. Yeah, we can have more knowledge, but knowledge is not wisdom, right? And so we have these challenges. We might have a sick kid. We might have aging parents. All of these challenges cause us to contract, to look at aging as an inward spiral, a downward slope. Our bodies get worse, our health gets worse, our mindset gets worse, and it's just a tragedy. So yes, aging matters to the body. We all know that. I always say age is not just a number. I didn't believe that till I hit my 60s. And it's like, oh yeah, it's true. It's not just a number. We have to change things. And that includes everything from our food to our training, recovery, sleep, absolutely everything. But how we view the world. It is never too late to change the trajectory of our mindset. And I think that catches a lot of people off guard. It's actually easier because you can change in an instant. And I call that the shift. The shift is what I learned like 30 years ago. But the body takes longer to change because it's flesh and blood and bone. So just know that at any time, but it has to be a willingness. And your brain, your psyche does not want to change. It likes its belief system. It wants to make itself right. It does not want to step out of its comfort zone. So I'm going to show you another way of looking at healthy aging. So this is what we call the traditional or mainstream way that people view aging. Now, it's not to say that stuff doesn't happen, guys. It does. It happens to us all. We all have stresses. We all have challenges. That's part of life. It was Anthony Robbins that said, the problem is you think you shouldn't have a problem, but problems sculpt our soul if you allow it, if you pay attention. So with this, we're starting with birth. Everything's great and grand and the sun is out. And then before you know it, we're getting to the center and this is the end of our life. And all of this stuff has caused our body and our energy and our outlook to contract. Now, let's take a different view of this and we can start with birth at the center. Okay. So everything starts at the center and we start moving outward and expanding in our life and our experiences. We're expanding outward and we've got hits along the way, just like before. So we might have a divorce. We might have money issues. We might have parent issues, whatever it may be. But every hit we have is an opportunity to expand. Now, this is the mindset work. This is the coaching piece that I do because we're meaning-making machines. So a lot of people will say, well, I'm stressed. I have stress. We all have stress. But how do you define it? So I always say, let's take the word stress out. And what is it really? What is it really? Is it you don't have healthy boundaries? Is it you're putting everybody else first before yourself, which is feelings of unworthiness? Or if I do more for everybody else, I'll be more. Not true. Is it perfectionism? Is it all or nothing? Is it you've got to be the fixer, take care of everybody else so that you don't have to look at self, which can be a diversion factor, right? So all of these little personas that we have also can play into our belief system where we look at stress as it's something outside of yourself. Now, there is stuff that happens. We all know it. But how we respond to the environment is what matters. A lot of stuff we can't change, guys. We cannot change it. But when we focus on it, when we blame and complain, we're in a blaming and complaining society, guys. And if you can just remove that, you're going to feel like a very different person. I promise you that. But every hit you have is an expansion, and we call this building wisdom, right? The other way is not building wisdom. This is looking at things and moving through the experiences as a process. And the process, I always say, is not the end result. The process is the work, and it's who you become along the way. So now when we come to our end of our life, we have expanded into the best version of ourselves. We have stepped outside mainstream and the group think and all of the victimhood and all of the terrible stories that people say. I have a family member who is in her 80s who is bitter and angry, and she has lived the other way. And it shows up. It showed up along the way, and it's showing up because she's getting tighter and tighter and more angry, frustrated, resentful. And will she change? She could. In a heartbeat, she could. In a heartbeat. But that's what people don't understand. Well, I've always been that way. No, it's the way you've chosen. And it's the way that you have unconsciously taken those patterns and conditioning and thought processes as your own. But usually they weren't your own. Usually it was from other people. It was you getting a hit in life and other people defining it. It's kind of like the little kid that runs across the playground and he falls and his parents go, oh, you poor thing. Or they go, you're good. You're strong. You got this, right? Very different scenarios, very different outcomes. And that pattern that our parents had came from their parents, right? So it's just hand-me-downs. So this is where I always say that women that I work with are breaking the chain. So this is how we can expand into healthy aging, building wisdom along the way. So when we see challenges, when we see life happen, again, the general population, to make another little graph here, another little visual for y'all, because I'm such a good artist, is like, okay, here we are going through our life. Oh, there's a bump that happens and we get over it. But we flatline again back to the way things were. Oh, things are good, right? So a lot of people will go through challenge, but it won't excel them. They'll just wait for it to pass. And then they're right back where they started. And then another one hits, another, uh-oh, and then they're back to, right? Which is fine, but there's no movement upward. It's a lateral move. This is not growth. So what we want to do is consider looking and doing differently. So here we are, and life happens, and there's a, oops, we look at it through a different lens. We stay open and curious to the lessons. What can I learn from this? What am I meant to see from this? Where can I grow through this to a higher level? And they go upward. And there's another hit. Uh-oh, another chance to reframe and reset. And they're growing into themselves. And this is, oop, now you can't see it. It's an arrow upwards. This is growth, guys. This is growth. So do consider, as you're moving through your life, how you're viewing it, what kind of lens, and where those stories or those expectations came from. You can change it at any time. Now, here's the hard part. A lot of people are addicted to victimhood. A lot of people are addicted to their anger, and there's nothing you can do about it. But do take a look within, because everything starts and ends here. This is our only responsibility, and whatever happens out there is not our journey. This is our journey. So bring it out, bring it back, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What muscle am I being asked to grow? Patience, self-love, tenacity, integrity, honesty, whatever. And once you can put a different label on it, you're going to move through in a different way. And you're going to expand in your life, in your body, in your future. And healthy aging takes on a whole other approach. And your body will love you for it, because everything is at a cellular level. Emotions are at a cellular level, and they wash in your cells in your body. And that's been proven a long, long time ago. Deepak Chopra, Joe Dispenza, all those dudes. They recognize that emotions are chemical signatures in your body, right? So you can't just not think about something. You have to replace it, right? Nature abhors a vacuum. So there's a hole in here. So if you take away shame or anger, unless you put something else in of a higher vibration, it's going to fill it with the same. This is kind of why some women or men choose the same kind of partner over and over again, like I did in my 20s, right? Until I went, oh, I need to think differently. And I actually wrote out on a piece of paper all the values that I wanted in a partner, which were way different than the partners I had been with. And I went, oh, that's what I want. And I started feeling what that would feel like. And then 26 years ago, my husband walked into my life. So that's just my little story. So this is the law of attraction, but we have other universal laws. And one of them is nature abhors a vacuum. And the cognitive restructuring means we have a fear bias, which means we're wired for fear. And what we believe or what we see is what we believe to be real. And it's not true. It's just a belief system. We don't believe in the tooth fairy anymore. So beliefs are supposed to change. So just take a look at when you hit that wall with something happening in your life and ask higher level questions instead of, why do I always, how come it always happens to me? Oh, I don't want to go through this again. I'll just hang on tight. What the heck was that? All of those are negative, no answer questions. And when you start asking better questions, what can I learn from this? How can I view this in a different world, in a different light? What muscle am I being asked to use here? What is the real meaning around this? Can I put a different meaning around it? Because we all have stress, guys, and we all have challenge. But what I've seen in my 30 years of doing coaching and my 60 plus years of living on the planet and looking at my own self as my own experiment all the time, I see people who live negatively in their head and they have a negative outcome in their body. And when you have a different way of seeing things, when you can accept and surrender to what is and not make it wrong, because it's not wrong, it's just life that happens to you, then you will be able to live with freedom and insight, self-worth, self-love, and from a different plateau than most people out there. I hope that helps, guys. Thank you for listening. Then I'd love to hear your comments about your own views of aging down below. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.